It's still early morning communication, navigation, weather prediction, and still reconnaissance. Intelligence, we will cover a bit of that afterwards. It all started, in fact, in the Cold War with the so-called bomber gap. At a certain point, the United States were completely afraid that the Russians would have so many bombers that they would simply overturn American defense. So the Americans pumped up their own bomber fleet to 2,500 bombers. And to make sure that the Russians couldn't really overtake them, they really had this ambitious program with the U-2, the spy plane over here, which you might know, that went up to 25 kilometers of altitude and could travel 3,000 nautical miles. So a typical mission from that plane was then to fly over from Turkey and go to Norway, of course, over Russian territory, and the other way back. And that was kind of successful. They could really show that the Russians didn't have as many bombers as they originally thought. And of course, the pilots flying in here had a strict order not to use the ejection seat in case they would have been shot down. Now, why would you put in the first place an ejection seat in there and then tell people not to use it? It was not so clever. And in fact, it really happened in 1960 that the U-2 with Mr. Francis Powers was shot down by 3 surface-to-air missiles from the Russians in Sverdlovsk. The Russians got the guy and made a wonderful tribunal on that one. The Americans were completely pissed off afterwards and decided this is not going to happen again. We invest now into reconnaissance satellites. Really, really big events, and they really just went afterwards with Samos and Corona. And this was really the beginning of the reconnaissance satellites. And the missions that took off at that time were really super, super interesting when you look at that. When they launched, of course, the things with the classical rockets, so far so good. They went up into a really low orbit. You can see 76 nautical miles, stuff like that, really, really low. Then they made the photo operations, and that were classical films, film rolls, chemical, of course, that stuff, right? When I showed to my son, who's 12 years old, such a camera, which of course no batteries involved, right? Then you could have to put the film reel. He looked at me, Papa, where's the display? It's like, what kind of display, right? So I can see what kind of picture I've taken as well. You've got to go to the processing plant, and they make it, this is odd. Same stuff was here, right? So this stuff the whole film reel was shot. Afterwards, that was 19 days, and the film reel was gone. They put it in a little capsule that came down, and to make sure that nobody else would get it, they came with a plane and caught it up in the air. And if you've ever seen the movie Operation Zebra, where there's this nice run between the Soviets and the Americans for a capsule that got misflown to the Arctic Circle, and they were going there with a submarine. There's supposedly a truth behind it, because once really the Americans lost the capsule. And there was really a race, and the Americans got it first, luckily, but nonetheless. So this really happened, they caught it up in the air. So the resume of Corona is kind of interesting when you look at that. So they flew 145 missions, 1 of the 2 were successful. They made 860,000 photos. Incredible. 39,000 film canisters. I would have run a business developing all these films. That would have been really nice. And they were so successful, they said, let's go on. And if you should ever want to look into that, where they're currently standing, you don't look for the name, you always look for KH. KH means keyhole. That's the nickname for the camera, in fact. And whatever is named afterwards is just bogus in that sense. It's really keyhole is the one that counts. And when you see 62 to 64, 12 missions, 6 successful, 1,200 kilograms of mass was the satellite, getting a bit bigger, 1,500 kilograms, gambit, 2,000 kilograms, 3,000, resolution 45 centimeters, 15 centimeters already, getting really, really low. Hexagon, big beasts now coming up, finally, 11 tons. MOL was intended to be orbiting with a man on board, was never finished the place at the end. And then finally, KH-11, Cannon Crystal, 13.5 tons, 10 missions flown. And 12, current up to say 10 to 12 years, resolution of 10 centimeters. Human figure, that's Corona, that's the first one. Hexagon, KH-11. Does that one ring a bell when you look at it? Yeah. Yeah? What does it look like? Hubble. The Hubble is a spy telescope looking in the wrong direction. And maybe the reason for that it was so unsharp looking, was because it was focused for 300 kilometers and not for infinite. Originally, that really happened because it has 5 military brothers, which are not maybe so well known, which are still circling around. And pictures like that, you could see in James Weekly. This is a picture from 1984. It was only leaked out 10 years afterwards. And the really impressive one is it's a Russian bomber. Oh, okay, so what? The Tu-16. But the Tu-16 is operated by the Chinese. Now that was something. And the other one down there is a shipyard in the Black Sea where the Russians just were working on the aircraft carrier. And even in 1999, we still worked on that stuff and had pictures from the Sahara with a presumed chemical plant for VX gas and stuff like that. Now, I'm talking about resolution to give you a feeling what it really means. This is always the same picture, more or less, but just, of course, in a simulation, what it means if you look at it with 1 meter resolution, 2.5 meters, 5 meters, 10 meters. You see the difference. If you just look at this building in 1 meter, 2.5, you can still make it out of this building. With 5 and 10, it's getting tough. If you get lower, look at a car park. 10 centimeters, no problem. You can find out what kind of car it is. You don't read the car plates, by the way. This is completely Hollywood bogus. Makes no sense to use a drone for that if you really want to do that. 25 centimeters, you can still find these cars. 50 centimeters, still cars, but 100, difficult to tell what kind of car it is. And military people would not really go and try to identify directly what kind of car it is. What they would do is they look at the facility and would try to see how the facility develops over time. Because that could tell them what is going on there, where they invest the money, how things are developing, stuff like that. So we're talking now of a satellite system at the moment with 20 tons, 10 centimeters resolution, optical. There's radar satellites up there as well, with 1 meter resolution. Typical stuff you can find on the web is from this satellite here, Iconos, that was launched in 1999, 1 meter resolution, or QuickBird, 2001, resolution 61 centimeters, or even going further down. Now the latest generation of QuickBird just launched recently has 30 centimeters resolution. You can get that data, no problem, as a private person. I'm not sure about the 30, I think there's some sort of legislation in certain countries where you can't get it. And you can of course find it on Google Maps. And it could be super embarrassing because this, for example, is a Chinese nuclear submarine. And I've seen it on the 18th of December 2010. I looked at it 2 years later, still a few. I looked at it 1 year later, again a few. It's always fresh data on the nuclear submarine base of the Chinese. It's always kind of interesting. Now, if you're a military guy, that's fantastic. You're not so much interested how big the ship is. That one you know anything changes weekly. But what you, for example, would be interested is to see when it comes in the harbor, how long does it take to refresh the supplies? How many people go on board? Stuff like that. The operational stuff is the one that counts for you, right? And it's pretty embarrassing for the Chinese that the stuff is on there. What can they really do? Outer space treaties, I will not cover that one too much because it has been covered already. Interesting is the reality. The problem is we have, so to say, a ban of stationing nuclear weapons of mass destruction in the Earth orbits, but there's no prohibition of stationing conventional weapons in Earth orbit. Nothing like that. And the other one is, of course, you can always discuss where space starts, and FAA says it's like 100 kilometers if you want to get the astronaut wings. But this is, for example, not accepted by the States, so there's like 80 kilometers or whatever. And the other one is like, where's national sovereignty? Does it go up to 25 kilometers? Is it higher? And if so, what's in between? What's between the 25 kilometers and the 100? Is this non-airspace, non-space? What is it? So this is completely lacking still. The Europeans are now taking big strides as well. We have launched Copernicus, Global Monitoring for Environmental Safety. GMES has changed to Copernicus by now, and it's an Earth observation program aiming for social, economic, and security benefits. It's the first time Europeans take the word security in the mouth when it comes to Earth observation. And started in 2014. Quite a big budget, as you can see, 4.3 billions. And the idea behind is really that you use Earth observation data in public projects. Let me show you an example. What is done, for example. Assume that you're a farmer. The European Commission funds you, gives you a subsidy if you just lay your field for waste for 1 year. Like you take it 3 years, you plant crops, and in the 4th year just leave it rest so it can recover. And they give you a subsidy for that one. So what you do is you go to, not to the ITU, but you go to the federal agricultural entity, and you tell them, hey guys, I want to rest, yeah? Give me some money for that, to compensate me for that. They will say, yes, we forward a subsidy based upon certain conditions, you don't plant anything, etc., etc. They send back the report saying, I haven't done anything. And from time to time, the commission or the entity will come and say, well, let's have a check if these guys really behave. So they make a picture, and they see on the resolution, on the spectrum, they get back whether there's going to be something planted on or not. And that way it is checked. So that's really already done. Another thing is, of course, the land monitoring, emergency, marine monitoring, lots of stuff that's currently coming up. Now, what does this do with small satellites? You've seen resolution, of course, is one of the things. Getting the access data really quickly is another thing that the military people always want. So if you have a big constellation, you can definitely get them on board. They were really happy with that. But how Hubble Space Telescope, so to say, is KH11, Canyon Crystal, with its high resolution. You can ask yourself, is a small satellite so beautiful for a military system? Now let's take Otto satellite here, the bright satellite, because Otto, of course, has some secret deals with the Austrian Armed Forces. So the Austrian Armed Forces are now making a no-such agency, and we're now trying to spy on all our European neighbors. So Otto satellites will turn around. There's a second camera, what we don't know. And we take now the resolution formula, right? Wavelength, distance, aperture. Take Otto satellite, 30 millimeters, we're working on it. Distance, 800 kilometers. Wavelength, 550. Resolution, 18 meters. Compare that one to the Hubble Space Telescope turnaround. 2.3 meter mirror, 300 kilometers, 550 of course, 8.6 centimeters. It has been stated yesterday, it has been stated today, but I've made the statement, size matters. At least for Earth observation satellites. Frequent revisits matter as well, right? So I don't think that small satellites will be a big blow for the military when it comes to high resolution stuff, but for frequent visits it will. And seeing is not observing. That's a nice quote. Guess who said it? It was not Attila, it wasn't Einstein. You see, but we don't observe. Mr. Jacob, thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you, Norbert. Very nice presentation and inspiring, I hope, the small satellite community. Okay, the next speaker is Jacob Mølbach NISSEN, who is a Chief Technical Officer of GomSpace. This is, I understand, one of the new companies where we will learn about the small satellite technology. Jacob, as a Chief Technical Officer, is serving now in GomSpace, which is a leading provider in nanosatellite and CubeSat systems and platform. And GomSpace is actively engaged in research and demonstration of activities, space-based activity and infrastructure. Let's just finish quickly.
Okay, can you hear me? No. Okay. It's not easy to be one of the last speakers at this symposium today, but anyway, I'll do my best. Actually, there was nice breaks because my previous work before I joined GomSpace, I actually worked in the security domain, and I've worked for BAE Systems, a very huge company where they also have a lot of rules and regulations, so I don't think the ITU can do more than I've been through before. One thing that when I joined GomSpace for 14 months ago, the founder of the company, Lars Almin, the first thing he told me was that the biggest threat for the success of our company is actually the frequency allocation process. And actually, I'm very thankful that being here today and also yesterday, since actually put out the gas of the balloon of my biggest problem. But I'll watch it carefully how things are progressing. GomSpace was established in 2007 as a spin-out of the Aalborg University. I think there was a speaker yesterday that said that this is going to be global, and I can say for sure that this is global. We are actually servicing 45 different customers, or customers in 45 different countries. So we are quite busy at the moment. We have grown. We have tripled the number of staff between since 14 months. So we are actually very, very busy. So what are we doing? We are making products to the entire satellite platform. The only thing that we don't do is actually the structure, which we buy from our nice friend from ISIS. Otherwise, we do all the stuff ourselves and get it produced by our subcontractors. So we do radios, we do attitude control, etc. But we also do entire missions and platforms. We can also